came to the text because for the playwright Lynn Nottage, Sweat was born out of an extensive period of field research and kind of ethnographic research that she spent a lot of time getting to know the steelworkers in Reading, Pennsylvania. So what was that like for you to meet in the text?
She's an amazing kind of definer of character, I think.
Mm-hmm.
She really clearly takes her research and builds very realistic characters from that.
Mm-hmm. For me, I knew all of that before I read it, but I knew it was an incredible play, that I knew there was so much research into it and it was based on real people, that I could read it and feel a personal connection with some of those characters because of their character and their human stories and not the politics. Two characters I always talk about are Chris and Brucey. For me, felt like a personal connection that I went, okay, I need to direct this. Because if I can, through all of the politics and the research, if I can go like that and just feel such a heart connection with these characters, and then all of them, but there was that initial connection, then I need to do this.
And then how did your research trip to Reading change or impact your kind of emotional connection to the play?
Well, by that point, I was emotionally connected to all of the characters in it. had a little cry to myself about the world. So was in a place, that was months later, so I was in a place where then you could turn your director head on politically and go, okay, let's go into this world and really start to tear it apart and physically see, you know, I'm very much a Londoner, so the personal and the emotional stories were there for me, but actually going and seeing that bit of America, seeing those spaces, smelling it, touching it, we needed to do that, I think, to create the world.
It's not anywhere that either of us had been before.
No.
And so seeing it firsthand really kind of gives you a much more concrete kind of understanding of those visual worlds and the being able to talk to people there, meeting real characters that aren't they kind of inform your understanding of the characters in the script because it's kind of like they might be their neighbour or their friend, and so giving yourself that kind of background context on a script is really, really helpful.
It's also really exciting because Lynn set it in a particular bar in Reading. So it meant that we could go and hang out there.
Yeah, being able to spend a night in a bar
that she set the play in
is
incredible. Meeting the people there, drinking there, making friends there.
And particularly, I mean, as a set designer, to be able to walk into a space and think, okay, this is essentially where it's set. How can we document this in a way that's really detailed and really helpful to me? And then how can I kind of build on that and sort of recreate that faithfully, but also do something new with it?
Can I ask specifically about design as well? That the set that we have in the Donmar is the bar within this kind of structure of the factory. Where did that idea come from?
We went to this absolutely humongous factory that is just standing there, just rusting. It was incredibly sad, and we were being shown around by a lady who her dad, her granddad and her great-granddad had all worked there, and you could see that she was incredibly proud of them and also incredibly sad that she wasn't there working in the same capacity.
That story of this woman that we met who toured us around this factory and then got quite emotional. She does this every day, but got emotional talking about the legacy of her family and her grandfather and her father and then herself all being connected to this thing was really important for me to see in terms of character.
What were some of the methods that you used to bring all of your research to the rehearsal room and to the actors?
I guess we kind of showed them both images of the bar, of the factory, of our kind of walks around Reading. I mean, we spent a lot of time just kind of wandering around. I mean, it's very sad to see how such a clearly once affluent town is so like down at heel now.
The word that comes to mind is faded.
Yeah.
And I think that was something, words are something that I use a lot in the room, and that's the architecture, but that's also these people. And as the play's set, you know, it jumps around in time, and faded is a thing you can describe all those characters when you think of the timeline of their lives. And also just talk about, we were a very close company, we are a very close company. And you know from working with me, we dance around, we really bond. So we were able to then really get deep and emotional and really speak about these people's experiences and really I'm from a working class background, and I think it's really important when you're telling stories like this to make sure that the characters don't become stereotypes. It's so easily done. Lynn's writing is so beautifully nuanced because they are not stereotypes. And seeing these people, being from the background I'm from, having the incredible personalities that we had in the room meant that these characters came alive just by being in that space.
So what are the specific design considerations with the space of the Donmar?
It's a beautiful space and a really tricky space all at once, because it's in a thrust configuration, which means you have audience on 3 sides, and you've also got a downstairs and an upstairs. So you've got a whole gallery of audience looking down, and it's quite a sort of steep downward view. So you've got to design something that you can kind of look through and from above and from below, and it needs to be much more kind of environmental and immersive rather than just one image that is flat on.
How does that change the way they meet the play?
I mean, the 2 sides can see each other, they can see each other reacting to things, and I think that really sort of spurs on the audience's experience of the play, because we all feel like we're in it together, and you feel hopefully like you are in the bar with all these characters.
What would you like an audience to take away from this production of Sweat?
I think there are about 25 answers to that question because of how layered the play is. I think there's the political stuff, and I'd love audiences to see that and resonate with that as they will, from a London perspective, from a British perspective, and from an American perspective. I think there's the representation of seeing as I felt when I first read it and saw Chris, and I've said loads of times that I saw myself in Chris as a character, and I still see myself in Chris as a character. So that is another thing that I hope audiences can see. I love when I hear these conversations about I feel represented now. I feel like these voices speak to me because I can see myself in these characters. You know, and it's a very sad story what happens to these people, but there's something also about the representation of these voices that we are not talking about.
I mean, going over to Pennsylvania and seeing that factory firsthand, it really made me understand quite how manipulative Trump has been with the group of voters who are the steel workers, and the fact that he is sort of promising to sort of reawaken and enliven that industry just feels so horrifically false.
Some of the things those characters say in this play are really hard for the actors to say and for you to hear as an audience and for me to direct. But being able to access that and work out why they're saying that, and for us to watch it and go, that's how we got here.
It's a very specific story in one sense, but it's also very universal in the fact that it's just a very beautifully crafted portrayal of a community experiencing serious kind of damage via its loss of industry.
I also think on a sort of border, I mean, in a way it's kind of too late now, but you can track how people like Donald Trump got power. You can track how Brexit happened, whatever the word is, because of some of these situations, right? And there's characters in the play that you go, if you had told me her life story, I would have been like, no. But actually following what happens to her, I kind of go, whoa, okay, I never saw it from that point of view before. Yeah. So politically, there's lessons to be learnt. Things don't happen overnight. Things happen over years. Things happen over decades. We need to pay attention to what's happening and not pretend because it doesn't affect us, it's not going to affect all of us at some point, because that's what's happened. And I say that all in retrospect because we're in a position where we are now in the world.